So I got a new air pump, and of course it has the pin for the basketball, but then two different valves for two different bikes. So we'll try to pump up the Yankees. Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, the Yankees continue to be in mediocre mode, stuck in third place there, and get Texas two-step. So looking back at the past couple of series for the Yankees, which haven't been good, and they kind of really failed to sort of launch and make some sort of real great late season push there for the postseason, even with some of the new faces. And speaking of the new faces, some of them are already on the IL there, so we'll get you caught up on that in case you couldn't miss that news. But in terms of injury news, not all bad news. Some pitcher out there named Garrett Cole, you might have heard of him, took a major first step, at least on his way back from Tommy John. Obviously, he's probably not going to be ready for the season there. But any good news with Garrett Cole's worth sharing there, so we'll look at that. Plus, we just had Yankees Old Timers Day. Obviously, good thing it's 2025 because the Yankees lost Mariano Rivera to an Achilles rupture there, and this is actually the second time it happened to him in a Yankee uniform, kind of weirdly enough there. We'll look back at Old Timers Day, and some interesting pointers by Roger Clemens making his first Old Timers debut for the Yankees there, and had a little theory about how you can keep a starting pitcher in the game longer there, so we'll kind of look back on that theory there. So we got a little good stuff for you. We got a little Yankee past, a little Yankee present, but of course right now we worry about the Yankees in third place there, and then can they make a leap there to get to the AL East there? So we'll look at the whole thing. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast version of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees. So wherever you get your favorite podcast, you're listening to your bike, you can be on your bike, you're at the gym, wherever you get those podcasts, look for Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, subscribe there as well. And if you have to be watching right now on YouTube, should have been done already, but make sure you subscribe as well. And if you're watching on TV, you want to get both, do both, go to YouTube, wherever you get your favorite podcast, look for anything Section 420 Talkin Yankees, subscribe to all of it. So when we last left off, our heroes had just gotten swept and embarrassed in Miami there. And this again right after the trade deadline when the Yankees brought in a bunch of talent. We kind of revamped the bullpen, re-energized the bullpen, and literally kind of the first opportunity for those guys to showcase themselves. They all failed miserably. And again, you got to the point with Jake Bird, they had to send him down to AAA for him being so bad. And, kind of last episode kind of covered that with his stats and his numbers where, he was actually doing bad in Colorado, leaving up to the point in terms of his workloads there. So, again, not the great debut you want. You figure, you get all these new guys and the team will be energized and they go rip off 5 games in a row there. Or at least win 4 out of 6. Well, has not been the case. So even after they get embarrassed by the Marlins, go to Texas there, drop 2 out of 3 there, and in really heartbreaking fashion because in the first game the Yankees should have had there, and of course Devin Williams, who has been recent weeks praising for kind of righting himself, unfortunately has now kind of fallen off the wagon, so to speak, there in terms of being absolutely terrible. And we'll cover him a little bit later where he just cannot be relied on in a high leverage situation anymore. It's just unfortunate. I don't know what the situation is with him, but nevertheless, Yankees dropped 2 out of 3 against Texas there. Lucky to win the last game, to squeak it out by 3-2, so you're not really impressed. But look, got out of there at least with a win there, and then home hosting Houston Astros, which you don't know how it's going to go. I was not expecting maybe the best there, but then dropped 2 out of 3. And again, also heartbreaking fashion because it was a game that the Yankees possibly could have won the opener there Friday night, but of course Devin Williams again giving up a big home run in a tied game. The Yankees lose that one as well. Then again, lose the weekend series, and really in the final game as well, just get slapped around, especially with Max Fried on the mound. And that's what really brings to the attention, at least right now, is Max Fried, who again he's been a godsend for the Yankees early on there. I mean, remember early on in the season we were calling him maybe one of the greatest free agency signings for the Yankees. I mean, it was just really good, especially with Cole going down, for him to sort of swoop in and become the ace for the Yankees there. People are praising Brian Cashman, good move, great signing. Just for the fact that it's almost like Bonville or Soto, because I figure the Yankees not using that money on Soto, they're able to spread it around a little bit. And hard to say if the Yankees would have maintained Soto, would they also include Max Fried? Hard to say that, but if the Yankees not spending the money on Soto, kind of gave them the liberty to sign someone like Max Fried, and it all working out well for them. But unfortunately, the Yankees just struggles in the second half there. Max Fried actually is a part of that, and again, you don't want to blame him too hard there because he did a lot, good for the Yankees, positive in the first half, but maybe hit a wall a little bit again because he's not been effective for the Yankees. And again, that final game against Houston there didn't really give the Yankees a chance. I know the offense really gave much to work with there, but and I'm going to go back for his last couple of good handful of starts there. He's been giving up a lot of runs, not giving the Yankees much length there, and he's the guy you're counting on as an ace. I mean, it's almost like anytime he's out there, you almost have to be penciling in that win. That has not been the case with the Yankees. It's almost been like almost a pseudo Will Warren where you just don't know which version you're going to get of Max Fried there. So And so again, and if the Yankees are going to make any sort of push left in the season, there are all 43 games left there, so still plenty of time to get things going. But as they stand right now, there's 6 games back in the AL East. There's still time to make up for that. But again, you got to putting some wins together. You got to put some win streaks together, or just some hot streaks. Win 7 out of 10. Win 15 out of 20. Things like that, which doesn't seem like this team is capable right now. This has been a lot of losing series there. And again, Max Fried has been a lot of that. He has not been stepping up for the Yankees when they need him the most. And let's look back at a couple of his last starts here. So the most recent one about Houston, and I'll try not to beat this too much into the ground, but August 10th only went 5 innings. I mean, this is supposed to be ace. He only go 5 innings, gave up 8 hits and 4 earned runs. Go to the start before that against Texas, only give the Yankees 5 innings, 8 hits, 4 earned runs. Again, this guy's supposed to be an ace. He's giving up 4 earned runs. You can't have that. Now, game against Tampa at home, a little bit better. So he actually pitched into the 7th inning, went 6 2/3, only gave 4 hits and 2 earned runs. Okay, that's what Max Fried has to be. And the Yankees ended up winning that game. Some late inning home runs by Grisham and Volpe. A little bit magic there. But other than that, that's a game the Yankees also could have lost because Devin Williams also gave a big home in that game. But nevertheless, Max Fried at least pitched decently in that one. Before against Toronto, gets slapped around, only goes 5 1/3 innings, gives 6 hits, 4 earned runs, and then before that, is probably his worst outing of his entire career against the Chicago Cubs, and that was July 12th. Only went 3 innings, 6 hits, and 3 earned runs, and that's when he kind of had the blister issue, had to be taken out of the game, and that was kind of right before the All-Star break. And if you want to go to 2 starts before that, he only went 6 and 5 innings, respectively. So here's someone in the first half of the season. This guy was going 7, 8 innings on the regular, only gave 1 or 2 runs. Remember, he almost had that no-hitter against Tampa. He took that into the 9th inning before they finally yanked him out after he gave up a hit there. So, is it possible that all those long innings and all those, the way the Yankees stretch out in the first half is now affecting him in the second half? It's possible there. And if you want to look at his workload right now, he's up to this point, he's thrown 144 innings. Now, if you go back to last season, he threw 174 innings. So he's kind of on pace to pretty much hit his innings, what he did last season in terms of the workload there, but he's not been effective. And if you look in his past the 36 innings, he's given up 29 runs. So again, since a little before the All-Star break there, he's not been the same pitcher. And again, this second half and really this whole summer slump the Yankees have been having, some that you got to circle around Max Fried. Now you look at his numbers overall, 12-5 with a 2.94 ERA. So yeah, it's great, spectacular. But if you remember where he started the season, where his ERA was like almost under 1 or about 1 there, for him to sort of balloon up to 3 there, this shows how ineffective he's been in the second half. And just with some of the Yankees' problems, can't really blame him. Again, he's done his job for the most part. And again, he really was great in the first half of the season. But the summer and later on there, the Yankees need him to step up. He's not been stepping up there. And so we just got to see what's the deal with this guy. I mean, this is a guy we thought was a 7-inning pitcher. He seems like right now he's only a 5-inning pitcher. Is it the workload? Is that they use him a lot in the first half of the season? Could be that. Is it that whole blister issue? Could be that as well. Now, according to Boone, he says his stuff is fine, his cut is fine, but I know is that the manager's talking there? But it's kind of saying he's missing his spots. He's not able to put hitters away and so forth there. So that could all be true, but the Yankees need this guy to be what he is. Otherwise, there's no hope. Even with the 43 games left there, if you don't have a good, reliable Max Fried, the Max Fried they had in the first half there's no hope for this team. And even if somehow they squeak into the playoffs, let's say somehow they squeak in there, who's going to, is Max Fried, I mean, if he's going to pitch the way he is now, is that what you want for your Game 1 starter there? That's not a Game 1 starter. I mean, it's not, even Cole, who's up and down a little bit, you can say like that, but, you need someone who's going to be that Garrett Cole to take the ball in Game 1. Well, you would want it to be Max Fried there, but at least the first half version of Max Fried, not the second half version of Max Fried there. So he has to get himself right, and I think once he gets himself right, that'll kind of trickle all down, up and down the rest of the starting rotation there. But, the fact that Fried is, kind of been shaken with the Yankees, and can't really blame him there, for all the Yankees' problems and some. There's been a lot of, a lot of things that you can point to, specifically Devin Williams there. But Max Fried also, he skated a little bit just because he was so good in the first half. Again, good enough to pitch, be at least selected to the All-Star game, obviously with the blister. Couldn't pitch in the All-Star game, but nevertheless, he's kind of skated a little bit, any sort of criticism there. But he's got to step up a little bit if the Yankees are going to make any sort of push to get the AL East title. And even though the Brian Cashman had a really, really good trade deadline with all the moves he made, unfortunately some of those moves have hit the wall literally, and a couple of guys on the IL, and of course I mentioned before, Jake Bird having me sound to AAA just for ineffectiveness and being overloaded, and who knows, at some point he does come back there. Again, he's a swing and miss guy with a strikeout stuff, but again, he did have a bit of a high ERA, but I guess maybe they just want to, keep him on ice a little bit in AAA, not put him too many high leverage situations there, and maybe ease him back at some time in September. But as for two guys that are going to be out indefinitely, one of them is Ahmad Rosario, playing playing the outfield again, even though they got him as a third baseman backup again. He could play multiple positions. Was playing the outfield, ran into the wall, jammed his shoulder there. But it seems like he's going to be too serious. He's going to be on a sort of legit 10-day IL. Similar to what Aaron Judge, sometimes say, well, someone's on the 10-day IL and they're gone for a month. It was supposed to be 10 days. Why is the guy for gone? But it seems like it'll be a legit 10-day IL thing. Even mentioned that, during the Houston series, said he was feeling much better there. So hopefully he's back in. Not that he's anything great, any blockbuster, but of course he just could be a weapon there. Whether it's a pinch hit situation or a defensive, guy you want to put in there. So at least they're good to have versus not have him. And the other one, of course, Austin Slater in the Texas series came up with a hammy. His looks a little bit more serious. It's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, which almost tells me I think he's pretty much done for the year. I mean, it was kind of a mystery move to begin with. Again, you can always add talent. Why not if it doesn't really cost you much? But I really understand why they bought him in the first place. He was hitting 230, only 6 home runs. I know, statistically he matches up against left-handed pitching, can play all outfield positions, so he gives you some quality, some areas. He maybe could be a pinch hitter off the bench there, but again, I never really understood the Austin Slater move to begin with, but nevertheless, looks like you might not even see him for the rest of the season. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks, so could he be back theoretically, but when you see 4 to 6 weeks, to me, it almost more or less seems like he's going to be gone. Of course, September, I know you can have a couple of call-ups there, you can't expand the roster the way you used to in the old days, but nevertheless, you might have some other people, other options there for the outfield, so again, Austin Slater might just had a cup of coffee for the Yankees, and of course he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year anyway, so it doesn't matter. Same with Rosario, so their time in pinstripes will be quite short there, but at least it looks like as the two of them, Rosario should at least be back first. And speaking of playing the outfield, and the Yankees threatened to do this. Boone said they're going to do this. I didn't believe him. I didn't think they'd be that crazy, but they actually put Giancarlo Stanton in the outfield. I know it's kind of shocking there, but actually did debut him during the Houston series there. And again, he was pretty decent. Did have a put out in the first inning, had a good throw later on in the game. Didn't get tested too much there, so okay there, because if he's going to be running after a ball there, you hold your breath a little bit. But I just think it's a bad idea for the Yankees. Now, hitting-wise, obviously, you understand why they do it. Obviously, you have Judge with the elbow situation. He can't play the outfield just yet. He's starting to throw a little bit, so maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe he will be back very soon there, which is the more ideal situation. You don't want Stanton running out there. The problem, though, is that Stanton's probably been one of the Yankees' better hitter. Just before the All-Star break, it seemed like he found the home run stroke. It seemed like almost every game or every other game, he's hitting a home run there, so you don't want to lose that bat there, so you want to get him in the game somehow, but if Judge is manning the DH spot there, how do you get Stanton in the game? You can't just want to relegate Stanton to a bench player or a pinch hitter if he's hitting home runs left and right there, so you have to find a way to get him in the game. The only way to do that is to get him back in the outfield, so I can understand the mentality of it, but again, I just think it's fooling around with dynamite. You take his history of lower back injury, lower body injuries, with the Achilles, the hamstring, the groin, the toe, everything, and plus, again, literally last season during the playoffs, they tell him don't bother running. So if you're on the base there and you could tie the game up, just walk. Maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't there. So you go from that a year ago where the guy could barely jog to now you want him running around right field at Yankee Stadium there. So I understand why they do it, and I appreciate that he was actually willing to do it. He took the assignment there, but I still think it's fooling around with dynamite. But so far, already in the 2 games, so far so good. And if you look hitting-wise, Stanton always said that he always feels more engaged in the game when he plays the outfield, which is great. But the problem is, we've all seen the guy get hurt a million times there. So, but in terms of his idea of him being engaged in the game, you can't argue. So at least up to the point for the 2 games at this point he's played in the outfield, you want to combine those games. He's 4 for 8, so hitting .500 with 1 home run. And again, overall, been hitting so good with the Yankees, whether he's been a DH or right fielder, but specifically on the games he's been in right field, guys hitting .500, 4 for 8 with a home run there. So it's all paying off. It's all working right now. But again, I just think it's messing around. And again, this is his first time since September 14th, 2023. He's manned the outfield there. So we'll see how long it goes. I think once Judge comes back, then they flip-flop him in. That's good. But so, maybe the Yankees just figure they can hold their breath for a couple of games more until Judge is ready there. But I just don't like the idea, especially in the fact now we're in August. Now, relatively in terms of the New York weather, we've been kind of spared a little bit. It hasn't been really those doggedly 100-degree days in August just yet. We've had a few of those, really dry, terrible days in July there. But we haven't really had that in August there. But you want to be sending that guy out there in the dog days of summer, getting dehydrated, and that's kind of when you get dehydrated. That's when you get the groin injuries. That's when you get the hammies and all the stuff like that with your joints there. So I just think it's a really bad idea. There's some money you could pull off the bench there. I mean, the Yankees have plethora of plays, even though Ahmad Rosario went down, that you could put out there instead of Stanton there. But I understand you want to keep both Stanton and Judge's bat in the lineup, so that's why you're doing it. And Judge actually hasn't exactly been gangbusters too much since he's come back into the lineup, and that was during the Texas series. He's got some hits here and there, but we haven't really seen any sort of power yet from Judge there. So I just think it's a situation where if Stanton has better numbers against a certain player than Judge, then hey, maybe just sit Judge down for that game. I know it's Aaron Judge, the best player in baseball, and paying all his money there, but I just think he's fooling around with dynamite, as I said. He's got the elbow injuries, he's got all these other histories of other lower bodies injuries as it is. Why risk it by sending him out there? But if it's only made for another week there, so I guess we'll all have to hold our breath and hope he doesn't pull something. And a good example of why it's risque to be in the outfield actually brings us to Yankees Old Timers Day. And of course, that took place during the Houston series, which the Yankees brought back the players actually playing in the game, which I thought was great. We kind of covered in the last episode where mentioned that it's really become a photo op, and that really initially got started with COVID, because you understand with COVID, these are older guys. We know what the whole deal is with the disease, so you don't want to bring all these people in the field, so they kind of canceled Old Timers Day at that point. And then the years after, it was this sort of like a big photo op where they bring everyone in the field just for a picture, and that's not really Old Timers Day. The whole idea of Old Timers Day is seeing some of these guys from the 70s, 80s, and 90s play the game there, whether they embarrass themselves or not. And of course, the whole issue with Derek Jeter not wanting to participate, at least at this time around, which I kind of understand. You're the Yankee captain, you're the Joe DiMaggio of your time. Do you want to be in the field there making errors and kind of looking weird and maybe even looking fat in your uniform a little bit, even though Jeter seems like they're relatively good shape? But nevertheless, you can understand why the captain didn't want to get involved with that. Well, now you can really understand why, unfortunately, with Mariano Rivera, who previously had been taking place in the Old Timers Day in center field, which he'd always loved to do. Again, as much as he's been the greatest closer of all time, but again, we know in batting practice back in the day when he was an active player, he loved shagging fly balls. He loved playing the outfield. In fact, on his way out the door, he wanted Joe Girardi to put him there in the outfield, just kind of as a last goodbye there. Girardi refused wisely. Well, you can understand why, unfortunately, in the Old Timers game there in center field, ended up rupturing his Achilles. And needing surgery to be obviously to repair that. Now, luckily, it's 2025. Rivera's like over 50. We're not using Rivera, so it's not as devastating as that it would have been 15 years ago. But nevertheless, you see how we haven't played in the outfield there, so that's kind of why I don't want Stanton out there, even though Stanton's only like 35. But nevertheless, this is not the first time for Mariano, if you may recall. I think it was back in 2012 in Kansas City. Same thing, shagging fly balls during batting practice like he always did. And off the bat, ironically enough, of A-Rod, sent the ball deep there. And of course, Mariano Rivera kind of got a little twisted a little bit on the warning track there, ruptured the Achilles, and was done for the season there. Now, luckily, Mariano did come back for one more season in 2013. That was his final season there. Could have been 2012 if he didn't rupture that Achilles, because Mariano at that point was kind of on like a 1 year kind of sort of little deal there. But did come back there. But nevertheless, this is not the first time this happened to Mariano. So, possibly his days of being in the outfield are probably done. And the whole theme of the Old Timers Day was going to be the 25th anniversary of the 2000 Yankee team, because that's the Yankee team that beat the Mets in the Subway Series, the Subway World Series. And of course, some new faces to Yankees Old Timers Day, one of them being Roger Clemens, ironically, because, Boston Red Sox for so long. But of course, did a lot of good things with the Yankees, won the Cy Young Award, got the Yankees, a couple of championships there. And again, had a good overall run for the Yankees, even came back there in 2007, even though it was kind of a lesser version of himself there. But the whole thing was excitable, and that was the whole thing with, he was in Steinbrenner's box. We know Susie Waldman popped off on that there. So overall, I would say the Clemens experience for the Yankees was very good, even though it got a little bit bumpy there in early '99. But nevertheless, he was there on hand, and, they kind of picked his brain with obviously he's an old school pitcher, and they kind of asked about these starters these days who don't go, as I mentioned before, don't go more than 5 innings there, and they're kind of done with after 100 pitches. And they're kind of his theory of how can they improve that for baseball? How can they get starting pitchers to go long? Well, Clemens had a theory to throw out there, which I thought was interesting. Baseball is always revamping things. We see what they've been doing over the past couple of years with all these rules. A guy comes out of the bullpen, he has to face a minimum of 3 batters. Now we have the pitch clock and the batter clock, and the batter can't go leave the box. And all these rules to shorten the game and make things a little simpler. I don't know if they would shorten the game or not. Who knows that? But at least his theory of keeping a starting pitcher longer in the game is that once a starting pitcher is pulled out of the game, the team also has to take their DH out. So let's say you have the Yankees, for example. You have Giancarlo Stanton there as your DH. He's red hot. He's hitting there. And you have someone like, let's say, you put a Cam Schlittler in there, or even if it's Luis Heel, and you want to take Luis Heel out in the 4th inning. Well, if you take Luis out in the 4th inning, you also got to remove Stanton and put someone else as the DH. And you're like, well, no, I don't want to do that. I want to keep Stanton's bat in the game as long as possible. Well, in that case, if you want to do that, you're going to keep Luis Heel in the game longer than you want to, just because you want to get Stanton one more bat there. So is a kind of interesting dynamic. I just don't think it would ever happen just because, if you have a pitcher that's just laboring or hurt, I mean, you can't send them out there for another inning and just get clobbered again or maybe aggravate or get themselves hurt there. So, I understand the theory by Clemens and it's kind of interesting. There's no way that will happen there because I just don't think they're going to force a starting pitcher out there another inning. Now, I know this, you can say the same thing with the bullpen guys. Well, you take someone out of the bullpen, you make them face a minimum of 3 hitters. What if he's tired? What if he's fatigued? What if he's hurt? Now, you can make the similar argument, but I think someone coming out of the bullpen throwing about 12 to maybe 20 pitches at most is different from a starting pitcher who might be unloading 80 to 100 pitches there. It's a different type of workload. So, good idea, but Clemens, I understand it there, but, is there a possibility? Is that realistic? No way. And, of course, with baseball, a lot of these some of these old players that, pretty much relegated to the DH there, you're not going to make them lose 2 at-bats in a game. You want to give them as many bats as possible because they can hit as many home runs as possible. They can make fans happy there, and with the scoring, the gambling and stuff, you're not going to want to lose a DH spot. Someone like an Ortiz, for example, who all he does is hit, is to hit home runs there. You're not going to want to pull that guy out of a game early. That's just bad for baseball. So, good idea by Clemens, but ain't going to happen. I guess on to modern day pitches and modern day hard throws. And one guy out there we kind of all forgot about, that's Garrett Cole. Took a major first step as he comes back from Tommy John surgery, which again happened early this season. Then we get the pitch this season. Of course, we knew he was going to be out until sometime 2026. Well, again, this past week, did throw 20 pitches. Now, it's on flat ground, so not on the pitching mound like that. And I'm sure he didn't really air it out there. But let's just get him on there just to be able to physically throw a pitch is a good first step. Then, again, no reported sort of negative feedback afterwards there. Now, he's going to be part of a 14-month program to work him way back there. So I'm sure they'll have him throw more than maybe more than 20 and stuff like that. And then maybe he'll be pitching off the mound and throwing live batting practice, the whole deal there. All that being said, his target date as of this moment right now is somewhere in mid-May of 2026, which again, I think overall, if that's the case, I would take that. And the fact that maybe only lose a month next season. Now, of course, it's going to be along with that. Maybe this season, they said Luis Hill will be ready by June. Turns out we didn't get the guy until like almost late July there. So even though saying mid-May, just to be realistic about it, it's probably going to be somewhere around June, maybe even July he's able to join the team there. But if that's the case, though, it'd be good news for the Yankees there just to throw him in there. And at that point, of course, you're going to have Max Fried on the contract still. You still have Carlos Rodon on the contract still. I would assuming Luis Hill, unless he really spits the bit the rest of the season there, will be in the rotation as well. And then as far as that number 5 there, again, we're really looking to head forward here. Hopefully someone like Cam Schlitter, for example, really thrives the rest of the season there and does a good job for the beginning of next season. They have him in the rotation. You also have someone like Will Warren bounce around as well there. But of course, that's way in the future. We don't know if it's going to happen in the offseason. Maybe those guys get traded there. But at least Garrett Cole on his way is working it back to the rotation. You're just going to have to wait till sometime 2026. Well, if there's one pitcher out there you don't have to worry about being the Yankees again in 2026, and that is Devin Williams, who unfortunately has really fallen off the wagon there in terms of his being put in the high leverage situations and blowing games for the Yankees. Again, started off the year really rough. They kind of put him back in what they call lower leverage situations. He kind of righted himself. Then he got to the point that he was actually exclusively being put in the 9th inning there, and I was actually singing him some praise there. And unfortunately, it's all fallen apart for him yet again there. And we don't know what the situation is. Is it a stuff thing? Is it an injury thing? Is it the can't handle the pressure in New York? We don't know what it is there, but unfortunately, just had a bad streak really within a short amount of time there. And if you look, I mentioned before the Tampa game, which he blew. Now the Yankees did have a comeback and actually win that game there, luckily. But of course, he's had a really bad week, and that was really after the Miami series where he also surrendered a big home run in that series as well. But you look both the Texas and Houston series there. Of course, that first game, Yankees are winning 5-4. Desperately need a win after getting swept in Miami. He gives a home run to a guy hitting like 126. I mean, the guy was an absolute bum the whole season. This guy surrenders a game-tying home run. The Yankees lose that one extras, which you knew was going to happen. Then you take the game after that, which Boone, I understand why he did it. You brought him right back out there. Because I understand, look, if a player fails, you want to get him right out there right away just to do something good, to feel good about something. So I understand why Boone did it. But at this point, it's a 0-0 game. This guy's been struggling a little bit lately. You put him out there in a tie game. He ended up surrendering 2 runs there. And Yankees ended up losing that game 2-0 there. So that's a second loss. Again, you can thank Devin Williams. Now, Devin Williams had some trouble on the base pass, so it wasn't all his fault. But yeah, again, he did give up the 2 runs there. And of course, I mentioned before, the opening game against Houston at Yankee Stadium there. Tied game. He gives the go-ahead runs there. And again, the Yankees ended up losing that first game there. So at the point there, he's just hit rock bottom there where you have to take him out. You cannot put him in those high leverage situations anymore there. So, if you're Devin Williams, unless he has like 6 or 7 spectacular appearances in a row. You cannot use this guy anywhere from the 7th inning beyond in a game where it's tight there, because this guy can't handle it. And case in point, that Boone brings him back. Next time they bring him back in the Houston series, it's in the 6th inning, which you wouldn't call a high leverage situations, and he's fabulous. He throws 11 pitches, 10 of them strikes, K's all 3 guys he faces there. But again, this is the 6th inning there, not the same pressure there. So maybe that's the situation, and maybe can't handle the big pressure there. Now that's the case, it's fine, because look, the 6th inning, that's just as important to get some outs there and at least pass the baton to the guys like Luke Weaver, maybe Duvall and Bednar, who could get the job done later in the game. But with Williams, you cannot put him in a high leverage situation anymore. And of course with him, I'm sure you all seen the stats already. This season alone, he's given up more runs than he has in the previous 3 seasons combined there. So something's wrong with the guy. Is he injured? Is he hurt? We had even when we brought him in this season, he had the back injury where he missed a chunk of 2024. So there was a little risk bring him in here. I thought it was the good move, right move by Cashman. Nestor Cortez, been there, send that. We got as much as we want to get out of Nestor Cortez. So if you could ship him out and bring in a quality closer, to work with Weaver there in the back end of the bullpen, it was the right move there. But unfortunately, it has not worked out for Devin Williams. Again, we just don't know if it's a pressure situation. Is it a physical thing? We don't know there. So all you can do for him for the rest of the season is root for the laundry. And of course, there's no way the Yankees are going to sign this guy afterwards. And of course, they made the moves already. They're bringing both Duvall and Bednar, who are going to be under control for next season at least, and of course with Duvall the next 2 seasons. And Bednar has really stepped up. You saw what he did in that final game against Texas there. Went a multi-inning save there. Again, wanted to take the ball the whole way there. Gutsy call by him, so he's kind of really taken this 9th inning role. And even during the Houston series, even though technically blew the save there, went multi-innings there, and so you see a little bit of toughness, a little guts. So good to see that from somebody at that Yankee bullpen, because again, Devin Williams looks like a deer in the headlights right now. And I don't care if it's late in the game. If it's a situation where you think you got to bring up Williams, I'd rather have someone like throw in Mark Leiter Jr. there. I mean, anybody in a big situation, even as Tim Hill against a righty there. Send Tim Hill in there. Anybody with Devin Williams, he cannot handle the ball 7th inning on. And only way I would trust him there if he has like 7 spectacular outings in a row. Maybe I'll try him again. If not, there as far as he could go 6th inning. That's as far as he go in a game. And at the top, I mentioned kind of Max Fried's been kind of hurting the Yankees lately. The second half of the season. Now the Yankees been kind of hurting the team has kind of been Austin Wells, the catcher. Now we know a couple of weeks ago he had sort of the nerve issue where he wasn't having feeling in his fingers there, so you can figure that might affect his batting a little bit. And we've been getting on Volpe with his low batting average, but if you look at Wells, it's actually worse than that. So at this moment right now, hitting .208, and he's in a terrible slump. So since July 8th. He's only 5 for 47. Only has 3 extra base hits in that time. Now, one of them is a home run, okay. And if you look at his numbers overall, in terms of power, 15 home runs, 56 RBIs. For a catcher, you say that's pretty good. But again, he's been hurting the Yankees just batting around 200 there. And because as he's been struggling, we kind of see the emergence of Ben Rice, who, once they kind of sent down Escara, during the trade deadline, now they brought Escara up, kind of briefly with Rosario down. But again, I don't think he was going to last too long there. Seems like Ben Rice is kind of taking that backup catcher role there. And again, he's been getting overall much better hitting and getting on base than Austin Wells, to the point there where, remember Austin Wells might be the better framer, maybe the better catcher there, in terms of, but in terms of offensive production there, you'd rather have Ben Rice's bat in the lineup versus Austin Wells there. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know, how long they're going to ride that out. And again, they're both kind of left-handers there. So it would be nice, ideally, let's say Ben Rice was like a right-handed hitter there, so it'll be a no-brainer there. So, but again, they're both left-handed hitters. So, again, lefty and lefty though, but again, Ben Rice is going to give you better bats, and as this goes along, if Wells doesn't improve, Ben Rice is going to probably get a lot more playing time. So that's the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. So the Yankees stand right now. They got 43 games left to the season. Of course, you got a little bit more left of August, and of course a whole September. And as we've kind of been preaching the last couple episodes, overall you have a soft schedule. You have a lot of games against teams like the Washington Nationals, the Chicago White Sox twice, the Twins a couple of times. But you also have some head-to-heads with some guys you're competing with, such as the Boston Red Sox and Toronto. So the Yankees could kind of put it together there. You can climb your way back. Again, not only get into wild card, but possibly still have a shot there at the AL East. I think they would ultimately there. May probably be a little bit too positive there. But again, the Toronto doesn't even scare me to that point there. Toronto, they always preach them every season. So like, when they do it, I'll believe it when I'll see it. But nevertheless, the Yankees still have a fighting chance. But some key pieces, mainly like Max Fried, has to get it together there. And again, the bullpen, they got to straighten out there and get a situation where you can't put people there blowing games. The Yankees have lost too many games with the bullpen. There's too many good guys in there to be doing that there. So at this point, again, Devin Williams is probably staying there in the 6th inning. So make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast version of Section 420 Talkin Yankees here on YouTube as well. And we'll catch you next episode.